All right, cool. All right, so welcome to Social Engineering for the Blue Team, Green Edition. My name is Timothy D. Block. This is a green track, so I have catered this talk towards people just getting into the field. I'm going to talk through some of my experiences. Really, this talk is getting noticed at work to improve security mindsets and get things done. So if you were looking for something, I don't know, a lot more technical, this is really just social skills, getting along with people, building relationship type of talk. Why this talk? Because I think relationships, when we're talking about in organizations, is really important. It is probably the most important thing. Within the InfoSec community, we do a really great job of going to these conferences, building relationships, having a good time, talking to each other. I mean, I go to developer conferences and they're always in all the talks. Whereas if you come to a security conference, a lot of people are often out in the hall, laughing, having fun, getting to know new people, networking in general. We do a lot of that stuff really well, but then we go back to our own organizations and we have a hard time getting security implemented within other departments. Those same techniques can be used to build better relationships in our organizations, get more things done within security. Ultimately, red team, a lot of the same techniques that they're using to break into buildings, we can use within our own organizations on the blue team side. And again, why should the red team have all the fun? What you'll also find with a lot of this stuff is that it will help with, life improvements, connecting with family, friends, job opportunities. So if you really suck at interviewing, these techniques can help you get better at interviewing and making connections with people. And then, of course, also once you get into an organization, get more responsibility, career advancement, things like that. So, my role. I work at Premise Health. It's an on-site wellness company. We have 600 clinics from 275 clients, a lot of them Fortune 1000, 44 states and 2 territories. We have 4.2 million lives covered. That's more than most hospitals, which means there's a lot at stake. And my role is to sit with the developers. I don't sit with the security team. I sit with the developers, so it is very important that they actually like me, because we have a lot of stuff to protect. They're handling sensitive information through a lot of their systems, a lot of different processes of moving data all over the place, different things like that. So oftentimes, I have to come in and say no, or I have to give them guidance, or I have to, pretty much make them do things the proper way, which means more work for them. And the conversations go a lot better if they like me more than if I'm just coming to them saying, you need to do this now. So I see relationships as very important, and I have managed to build some really strong relationships with them to the point that when I ask them for something, and I might just be asking a question, they're willing to drop what they're doing and just go do it for me, which is amazing. But before we get to how I'm able to build those relationships with people, we're going to actually take a step back to my story and coming up through IT and information security. So I was a wee lad, and as you can see there, you probably saw the little red-headed girl running around, spitting image right there. But I was a fun-loving kid, had a lot of fun, got A's and B's in school. Then I had to get glasses. Right around the 4th or 5th grade, I became aware of my social status, which was nerd. So I was picked on, I was bullied, didn't have a lot of friends, and I became enamored with trying to fit in, to the point that my grades suffered. One of the advantages I did have, though, was my dad was in the Army, so we moved around every 2 to 3 years. So I got reset every time. So no one knew who I was. So I had an opportunity to try a different way of interacting with people. But I failed a lot. I constantly failed. And that was really frustrating. But after watching a lot of MacGyver, and then a brief stint in Jenko Jeans in high school. Yeah. I don't know if anyone, who remembers Jenko Jeans? Yeah. Who wants to admit they wore Jenko Jeans? There you go. All right. Yep. I ended up joining the Navy. And I ultimately joined the Navy because I knew I didn't want to go to college. Because those same people that bullied and picked on me were going to college. And if I was going to be picked on and bullied, we're all going to get picked on and bullied in the Navy. And plus, girls like a man in uniform, right? So, it's an advantage. I've always had a problem with, talking to women. And I at one point went like 5 years without a girlfriend. I was really nervous around women, couldn't talk with them, didn't know how to start a conversation. I had, after my first duty, or towards the end of my first duty station, I had a really crappy 6-month period. So I did manage to get a girlfriend. She dumped me. My roommate left me with a 2-bedroom apartment in San Diego, California to pay for the last 4 months. And then I got captain's mast right before I got out. Or right before I was going on to my next duty station. I was captain's mast because I came in late, like an hour, which was actually pretty standard for a lot of people who were going to the next duty station. You just kind of rolled in a little bit later, you left a little bit later. The reason why I got captain's mast was, one, because leadership didn't really like me, but two, they came in and a lot of people are rotating through within the Navy, so the previous leadership had let things get a little bit slack. I got done what I needed to do at a very minimum level. And then had, spent a lot of time on the internet for the rest of the day. So I wasn't looked at in the most positive light. And so that was kind of just a really crappy period. And so, but this was kind of out of this, really kind of opened my eyes to, I need to do something. I got to figure something out. And so I started doing some, really was focused on like dating advice, things like that. But part of that dating advice, I found this book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Dr. Susan Jeffers. What's great about this book is that it really helped me kind of accept the fear, realize that I'm going to be in uncomfortable situations and that I can grow from that. And then kind of just leaning into it. And I mention this here because social interactions can be very intimidating. And so this is kind of what started my path down this journey of trying to interact better with people and connect with people better. Of course, my dating life does improve through this book and some of the other dating stuff. But another strange thing happened, which was my life in general just improved. Like everything was just a lot more positive. It wasn't perfect, but it did improve, which was interesting to me. So I went to my next duty station, worked hard, and expanded my role. I got into do some crypto stuff. I became a teacher. I was at a submarine learning facility. I'd never been on a sub. But they allowed me to do some like teaching on Navy core values because I wanted to teach. Became a forklift operator, and that is one of the scariest things when you're moving multi-million-dollar equipment around with a forklift. And you're like, just one slip. And there were some pretty steep driveways. But I was also a PT assistant, so I helped out with doing morning PT, things like that. And then right before, I spent 2 years here right before getting out. I did 6 years. And I had people ask me, I was there for my last PT on Friday, and I had a lot of people ask me, what are you doing here? Go away. Go. Stop making us do awful exercises. So like that was just I pretty much had flipped everything from my first duty station to my second duty station because I had started focusing and actually getting some good advice. So fast forward. I pulled cable after getting out, systems analyst, system and network administrator, and then I got my first security role. Put my 2 weeks in, and right before, or after putting my 2 weeks in with my CIO, he said something interesting to me. He said, you get a lot of work done, and everyone seems to like you. Now, this was something that I knew I got along with people pretty well, but no one had explicitly called that out as a strength. And realized I've been struggling with interactions, so this was the first time that someone said, hey, people really like you. And this kind of sparked some inquiry by me, like, what am I doing right? Like, what exactly is getting people to like me a lot more? And also I started making that connection between, well, maybe it's my relationships, having those, that's allowing me to get a lot more of this work done, because I did walk up to people and they were giving me answers or, dropping what they're doing to help me. And that kind of started me down this path of discovery, digging in a little bit more. Read a couple books. These are pretty much salesman type books. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, How to Win Friends and Influence People. They talk a lot about different things, with like favors and reciprocity and relationship building and body language, nonverbal communication, things like that. What made things really click for me though was Chris Maggie's books, Social Engineering. As I was reading some of those red team techniques, I was realizing, holy crap, that's what I'm doing with these people within my own organization. I'm asking how they are. I'm blending in. I'm doing all these different things that allowed me to build those relationships. And here's what I kind of learned. These are what I can recommend as far as building better relationships with people. Ask questions. My mom always told me to ask questions, even if they're stupid. Yes, sometimes you will get laughed at. I was laughed at a lot, but I always ask questions. It's a great way to learn, but it's also, people love talking. People love talking about themselves. People love talking about what they do. If you want to be seen as a conversationalist, ask questions and keep asking questions. This requires some active listening and continuing the conversation. At this point now, my whole game internally is to keep asking questions of people to keep them talking. Because the more I have them talk and the better connection I have with them and people are feeling about me. And this doesn't have to be necessarily from a technical level. You can get down to the personal level. How are you is powerful. It is, oftentimes I'll say, how are you doing? And people just open up with all sorts of stuff. And I've been, blown away with what people will open up to me with. And oftentimes, if you see someone having a crappy day, are you all right? How are you, everything okay? And sometimes people just want to get it off their chest. And that, again, helps you build that connection with that person a little bit. Something I should mention here is that we're doing this all from an authentic and genuine standpoint. I wouldn't recommend doing this from a manipulative standpoint, because this can get into manipulation. And if you're just taking from people will figure that out, and that's a good way to burn a relationship. So you're doing this from a very authentic and genuine standpoint. When I say, how are you, or are you okay, I actually mean, is there anything I can do to help you out? And people really appreciate that. And this is one of the strengths within the InfoSec community, is our curiosity with technology and, how things work and how we can break them. That same thing applies to a person, not necessarily how you can break them, but, the understanding how they work, how they're doing, who they are as a person, are all very important. Going the extra mile. If you work hard for someone else, they will work hard for you. This is what I did at that second duty station. I was all over the place. I was picking up responsibilities here and there, and that was really saying something to people. Right before I got out, I had a master chief who was leaving tell me, "Hey man, I expect great things from you." That is something that stuck with me and is very powerful, and shows that they appreciated what I did and thought I'd go a little bit further. So I go the extra mile for people. I often try to solve problems for them. This is also both from a security standpoint, but also not necessarily from a security standpoint. I have access to our service desk system and ticketing system. And oftentimes, the developers will put in tickets, and if it sits there for a while, they'll come to me. And then I'll go look at it, make sure it gets routed to the right person. Within the service desk, sometimes things just fall through the crack. It took someone 2 months to get a battery at one point. And all it took me was looking at that and then going and talking to someone about it, and then finally got things moving. They really appreciate that type of stuff. And so then when I go back to them with something from a security standpoint, they are more than willing to help me, because they know that I have their back and that I'm willing to go the extra mile for them, so will go the extra mile for me. And this is called, favors or reciprocity, whatever you want to call it. This isn't something that you're counting. This is just something that you're doing naturally and will come back to you when you need it. And sometimes it's not even that. So, the spiel about my company is, marketing wants to get out and get some more brand awareness for our company, Premise Health. And I said, well, what can I do to help? Marketing isn't necessarily somewhere that I'm going to, benefit directly, but building that relationship with them, if they get some kind of phishing email or they have some kind of security question, they will come to me. They know that they can come to me with that kind of stuff because I'm trying to help them out. So, nonverbal communication. Probably one of the most important things with connecting with people, interacting with them. Of course, present yourself well, be groomed, have a haircut. And then when we're talking about that also is, if you dress like them, you're mirroring. So people often are gravitated towards people that, we look like or dress like or, whatever. So I'm used to, with an IT environment, wearing a button-up shirt, some slacks or khakis, and then, working that way. But with the developers, I think we all know, what developers like. It's t-shirts, they dress down quite a bit more. So when I'm interacting with the devs, I will dress down, a little bit. I still have my style, still like wearing a collared shirt. It's button up, but, the sleeves are rolled up, the shirt's untucked. When I go down to IT, I kind of dress up a little bit more. If I'm interacting with executives, I'm definitely dressing up with that too. So, dress is very important. To the actual nonverbal communication and body language, some of the things you can do is face the person. So you want to be having a connection when you're talking to someone like this. It can be very awkward. You'll actually notice this too, is when someone's really engaged with you, they'll be facing you. Eye contact, sit and stand, straight up. There are instances where you're sitting down that you can be a little bit more relaxed. Of course, uncross your arms. If I'm up here, like this, it's just a very defensive position. That's something I'm still working on, is having my hands down at the side of the meeting. In the Navy, we had our at ease pose. And this is just being more open to them. Show them I'm open to whatever they're talking about. I could just be cold, but, still, it's something to be conscious of when you're interacting with people. Of course, smile. And I'm talking the full T smile. Not the serial killer smile. They've actually done studies on this, and was hot or not. The people that were rated hotter were people who smiled, weren't wearing glasses, and a lot of that is because you're showing vulnerability with people, and that draws people in. You make a connection with them there. And then, of course, we all have these. When you're interacting with people, stay off the phone. I get buzzed from the wife. Oftentimes I'll check it and then put it away if it's not the wife. If it's the wife's like, yeah, excuse me, I gotta check this, just in case there's some kind of emergency. Usually if it's an emergency, she'd be calling. But yeah, if you get like texts or notifications, because we get notified constantly, either keep it in your pocket or look at it briefly and then put it away. I can tell you people appreciate when you look at it and then focus back on them. It's, when you interact with people and you just start typing on your phone. Or if you're just trying to write something down. I've had people who are like, yeah, hold on, I want to write this down while we're talking, or I want to get, some type of, capture some kind of information, we're discussing. So that's kind of the quick and dirty. A lot of this, there's a lot more to this kind of stuff. I just wanted to give a couple things to be mindful of. Again, with the mirroring, if you can test engagement with people by shifting your body language. I've rolled my shoulders once, and I didn't even mean to, and I saw the other person I was talking to do the exact same thing. It is really weird when that happens. And if you start paying attention to that, you'll start noticing this kind of stuff. It can take a little bit of practice. Or I have specifically been like, oh, I wonder if, I'm talking to this person, we're having a good conversation. I wonder how engaged they are. And I'll just shift, and then they'll shift. Or, if I'm holding a beer or something, I'll switch hands with the beer and they'll do the same thing. It's really crazy. It's really cool too. Moving on to electronic communication. You prefer going up and talking to people, because email, IMs, things like that can be taken out of context. They're very generic. I always try to walk up to people. I still email and things like that because I can't do that for every engagement. But when I can, I do try to get up and go talk to someone. Cause that's, you're just building a better connection with people versus something that's over electronic that everyone else is doing. If you are going to write an email, this is what I recommend, is what's called bottom line up front, or bluff. Put your question, comment at the top, and then you can explain in 1 or 2 sentences. If they want more context, they'll ask you for it. Oftentimes I see emails come in where it's, 2 paragraphs long and then the question's at the bottom. When you put the question at the bottom, that means they have to go back up to the top and read it again. So you always want to move your question from the bottom up to the top, and you'll see an increased response rate for people. Because oftentimes I do it. When I get 2 paragraphs of stuff, it's I'm not answering that one right now. I'll save some time for it later. So this has been really effective and powerful for me. Be direct and short in that regard. So those are kind of the quick and dirty tips that I can provide, especially for new people. I really tried to think about what I wanted to do within some of my experiences and what I really struggled with. I am doing a lot more with this concept. I have a GitHub page, Social Engineering Blue Team is the page. I'm throwing a bunch of links up there. I gave this talk at BSides Indy. That'll be up there. I'm supposed to speak at Converge in BSides Detroit next month. I'm actually doing a workshop for them. For the BSides Indy, I practiced that, and I had an hour and 40-minute talk. So there is a lot of stuff to dive into. And that's kind of something to keep in mind too, is that this will take a lot of time. Try to pick one thing to work on, and then kind of, once you feel like you've mastered that, you can move on to the next thing. And I got a lot of the resources there. I love podcasts. The Jordan Harbinger show is one of my favorites, and talks about, social engineering, social connections, different things like that, success type stuff. You of course got Chris Hednagy's Social Engineering Podcast. Again, we can learn a lot of stuff from the red team. When like they're dressing to break into an organization, that's just mirroring. That's again, me trying to fit in with the devs is trying to dress like them. And then of course, career tools and manager tools. Really good stuff from a business etiquette standpoint, but they're really focused on having strong relationships within an organization. In fact, recently they talked about the 3 types of power: expertise power, role power, and relationship power. 50 to 75% of your power is relationship power. So they have a strong focus on that kind of stuff. It's actually where I got the electronic email recommendation for bottom line up front. Also really good for interviewing and other type of things. So that's pretty much it. Just reiterate, this takes time. A lot of this stuff can take time and practice. Hopefully this content helps you accelerate that a little bit. Of course, I got a lot of resources, and there's tons of resources out there, and I'm continuing to add to it. This is something I feel like I can keep doing blog posts on. I do podcasts, things like that. Speaking of which, this is my contact information. I run the Exploring Information Security podcast, where I have a different security professional in each week. We talk about a different topic. It's not all soft skill stuff, it's technical stuff, and just a variety of different things within information security that I'm kind of exploring at the time. Timothy.dblock@gmail.com is my email. You can reach out to me there, or feedback. TimothyDBlock on Twitter, and then TimothyDBlock.com. Like I said, I'm doing blog posts and stuff. I will say with the email, I check email like once or twice a day, so if I don't get back to you right away, it's not me ignoring you. It's just I literally check it just once or twice a day. So that's pretty much the talk. Any questions, comments? Everybody's blown away? That's what I'm sensing. Yeah, there you go. All right, cool. Well, if that's it, thank you.